Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity. Welcome to episode 35 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast with today's guest, Maxine Iharosy, founder of Inner Wilderness Yoga. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mother of three, a yoga teacher, and a consultant for yoga teachers. This podcast was inspired by how I have felt each time I leave a yoga teacher training. I feel a little like I'm left out in the wilderness of yoga entrepreneurship. As I leave the constant feed of knowledge, a motivation to practice, the learning, the growing, and most of all, I leave that supportive community of yoga teachers. So I wanted to create a place where yoga teachers could feel supported every week between the yoga teacher trainings that they're taking, or as they dash from class to class or take workshops. So this is a place where you can hear about a variety of topics from yoga teachers and other professionals. We cover topics like anatomy, philosophy, but we also get into the business side of yoga. As a yoga teacher, I get what it feels like to complete that first 200-hour yoga teacher training and then look out at the sea of future yoga teacher trainings. So often as yoga teachers, we keep gravitating towards other yoga teacher trainings. And that can mean that we're taking time away from teaching our classes, away from our jobs, away from our loved ones. It also can mean travel time and a lot of time invested in that training. So if you are thinking of taking a yoga teacher training, but you're worried about how to pay for it, I think you're going to be fascinated with today's guest, Maxine. I have the honor of knowing Maxine personally, and I have witnessed her journey of signing up for a yoga teacher training and then doing a community crowdfunding campaign to pay for it. And it was fascinating to watch. This is why I really wanted to bring Maxine on to the podcast today so that you could hear her story, how she did it, and what happened, because witnessing it was amazing. Now, Maxine is a dear friend of mine. I got to know her through the work at Tone Yoga Studio in Owen Sound. Maxine is the current manager of Tone Yoga Studio, and she took over this role from me, and you're going to hear a little bit of that story in her interview. Being a yoga studio manager, as some of you will know, is not an easy role at all. Sometimes we make jokes that it's like herding cats. And I say this with total love and appreciation for who yoga teachers are, because for Maxine, I'm one of those cats. And yoga teachers are really out in the world doing their own thing. They're independent contractors often. They're, going off to trainings like you're going to hear Maxine went off to a training in this. They have their own schedules, their own growth, they're entrepreneurs. And then being a yoga studio manager means bringing all of these amazing beings together onto one calendar, one schedule. And at Tone Yoga Studio, we on average have about 14 yoga teachers. So Maxine dove into this role and honestly did such an amazing job when she was there. One little add to this is that Maxine is being called to other things. She's working with the Sarana Institute, the young adult program. She's a coordinator for them. She does her own yoga teaching. And as some of you may have heard in previous podcasts, we came to our studio teachers and told them that things are going to be shifting at the studio. So we're switching a little bit of the admin role back towards teachers, and this is a lot of information for you guys, but we're switching it so that teachers are renting the space. And honestly, witnessing Maxine do this in such a caring and loving way for the whole yoga community has been a huge learning experience for me. I'm the director of Tone Yoga Studio at this point, and we have an owner, Catherine Brawl, who's amazing. Also, Laura is our admin, same Laura who does the show notes for the podcast. And so as this team, we decided what looks best for our community, what looks best for our teachers, and how can we slowly progress with them and go into this change. And we all know that change is not always easy. But I have to give a huge shout out to Maxine because she is really holding space for so many different people in our yoga community. And the biggest reason she wants to make this shift is so that she can have more time to focus on sharing yoga, being on the mat, that and not be doing the amount of admin that there is. So for those of you who are out there doing the admin of your own yoga business, or if you're doing admin at a yoga studio, managing different yoga teachers, herding your own cats, our thoughts are really with you. We get the struggle there, and thank you for the work that you are doing. So before we dive in and hear from Maxine, here is our hot tip from Michael of Schedulicity.
Hello, Connected Yoga teachers. This is Michael with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Did you know that Schedulicity can help you seek crowdfunding or charity donations through our targeted email marketing? This can be a powerful tool if you're hoping to create a new class, attend a new teacher training, or offer a special event that you know will delight your clientele and strengthen your community. To do this, head to the marketing area of your account and choose email marketing. Next, choose the Can You Help template and create your message. Be sure to include a link to the page that will be managing the donations. Email messages that are sent from your Schedulicity account are always personalized with your client's first name, and the names and email addresses of your other clients are never visible within the email message itself. If you have any questions at all about our email marketing, reach out anytime to support@schedulicity.com. By the way, Shannon rocks.
Thank you for that, Michael. And also thank you to the Schedulicity team. It's fun to hear that you guys are listening to the podcast and also that you're doing some yoga. So yay, Schedulicity team. We love to hear that. Okay, Connected Yoga teachers, let's dive in and hear from Maxine and hear how she used a crowdfunding campaign to pay for a yoga teacher training. Welcome, Maxine, to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am super excited that you're going to chat with us today about your whole journey with crowdfunding for a yoga teacher training, because I've been fascinated since the moment you sent out a little message saying, hey, who would like to support this? So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay. Well, it was a journey that had a lot of elements of fear. It was certainly terrifying, to say the least, in a lot of ways. I found that my teachers, two teachers of mine, were offering this training in Bali, a month-long immersion in Bali, Indonesia, but also it went over a series of months as correspondence and distance learning ahead of time. So it was from September 2015 to March 2016 was correspondence, and then we met up for a month in Bali. And when I got the letter back that I was accepted to the program, I was really, really overjoyed. And then I had a moment of realizing, I can't actually afford this, though. Like, this was a complete pipe dream. There's no possible way I can afford, first of all, to take that much time off and the flight all over to the other side of the world. And it's pretty expensive, but then also trainings as well to really honor the service the teachers are putting into it and their energy. And so I just messaged them back and I said, I'm really honored that I was accepted. That's great. I know it's something I totally want to do one day, but there's no way I can afford it right now. So please open up my spot for somebody else. And I got a call back pretty quick from one of my teachers who counseled me over about half an hour, 45 minutes of, no, we really want you to do this. And there's a way to do it. It's a women's leadership training. That's what it was focused on. And the leadership aspect played a really big role in participants being able to actually go and attend the program. And they said, we don't have a bursary or scholarship fund available, but what we will do and what we have done for others, really worked with them and mentored them to do crowdfunding. Have you ever done crowdfunding? And I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to ask people for money for me to go to a tropical land for a month and study. There's no way I can do that. And they said, well, there's other women who've done it for years before, and I think you should talk to them. So I got in touch with some of the women, in particular, Robin. She really helped me out a lot. So if Robin's listening, thank you so much. Just really helped me realize that this is an investment, and as a teacher, over time, you're investing in your students, but your students are investing in you as well. And why not give it a try and ask for support, especially if it's something you really want to do and you wholeheartedly believe that your students will benefit from your growth and direct experience.
Wow. So your initial reaction was like, no way, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, definitely.
in so many ways, like, no, I can't do it financially. And then they said, no, here's another idea. And then, no, I don't want to do crowdfunding. And I'm really impressed. And I didn't know that they then said, okay, we're going to put you in touch with someone who's done it in the past.
Yeah, and what was great was then after I did successfully do the crowdfunding initiative, I went on the training and all of that, I got to provide mentorship for somebody else who was considering crowdfunding. So it just kind of it went back and forth. And part of the leadership training experience was women learning off each other and learning how to approach the idea of asking for support and asking to receive from the community that they often give to so much. And that goes for women and men, but just because it was specifically a women's leadership training, that was a very big element of the act of giving and receiving and the balance there as a teacher, which I've heard talked about in your podcast a lot so far. Yeah.
So with that, what was the biggest lesson you learned? So was it a mindset of asking for help, financial help, or what kind of helped you to get through that?
Well, I think it started with that, a mindset of ask for help. And it may have started with an initial block of perhaps both pride of not wanting to ask for help, but then when I got down to the root of where that feeling was coming from and that stubborn block, it was stemming from a place more of fear, and more of a fear that what I'm asking for shouldn't actually be validated, that it's not actually of great importance in the world, or that what I do is not of importance enough to receive help and to receive support. So I think deeper down it was more about myself, doubting how much of an impact I've had on other people, but also doubting how much of an impact me going out, taking training, and then offering it in the kind of work that I do as a yoga teacher, how much that actually might mean to somebody, to the point that I wasn't able to validate my own sense of worth as a teacher. And it made me come up against definitely a block of fear. Insecurities came back. I was really chronically anxious and shy as a kid, and then as a teenager as well. So that kind of came up too in the process of, is it really worth it for people to support me? I really had to wrestle with that.
I'm so glad that you bring that in, Maxine, because for those of you who don't know, I know Maxine personally. She is our amazing studio manager at Tone and is a phenomenal yoga teacher. So I love that you brought in that you were feeling like, I think this is a very common thread. It's definitely common with the teachers that I speak with, of feeling like yoga isn't as validated in our own minds as teachers or in the minds of society as other professions out there. So say massage therapy or counseling therapy or other tools and modalities that people use to heal body, mind, spirit. Sometimes I feel like yoga teachers don't see that. So I love that this then brought that kind of right up into your face.
Yeah, it really did. It's impacted me. That lesson's impacted me hugely in how I teach now, that I do feel like there's a great worth in what a yoga teacher can do. It is a fairly new profession in the West as a profession, and I think does lack some of the structural support of other schools like massage therapy. So I think overall, and that's what I love about the Connected Yoga Teacher as well, is that it brings together this idea of community. And I think that really played in as well, of just feeling unsupported overall by the field and profession that I worked in. I feel like as yoga teachers, we can often be on our own little icebergs a lot.
That's so true. I get that. So walk us through what that looked like when you set it up, when you decided, okay, I'm going to do crowdfunding. What did it physically look like?
I actually didn't do too much research into different crowdfunding sites. I went with just one of the main suggestions that my mentor provided me, and that was Indiegogo. So I'm doing some further research. Like, there are other platforms that if you're not looking to reach out to a really big community of people who don't know you, there's other platforms that don't take as much of a cut as Indiegogo does. But it was a really clean, easy, simple template to work with. So that's also why I chose it, as it's a really new field for me to dive into, and the way they showcased everything and all of the options and elements, it was really clean and easy. So I went with Indiegogo, and along with that, what my mentor Robin suggested was that for each donation or different levels of amounts, to offer something back. So, for example, if somebody donated $100, there was a dinner that I would cook for them, focused mainly with local produce. Or if somebody spent $75, they got a personalized class, things like that. And that they just kind of went up and up and up. So that there's something that I was contributing back. That people weren't just giving money and then waiting months and months and months for me to give back after a return to this training, but that I could give back right away. And some of them, I cooked a dinner, I think a month and a half ago as a thank you for somebody who donated. So it's still going on for me. Well, it's almost a year and a half later, so it's a while, or 2 years in some cases. So I put it up, and they have an option where you can write your story. And so your story is just like a short, catchy, like, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, to provide updates along with it. So I think that was the most I've ever used Facebook. For the most part, like, I was on it constantly. Every time someone would contribute, I would send out a message. I was weaving the themes of what we were learning in our correspondence classes with the program. I was weaving that into what I was teaching at the studio and in my own classes. So I really became very much so about the entire crowdfunding experience for a while, and the content that we were discussing in the distance learning.
Yeah, I feel like just watching your journey, I saw a real conversation going on. It was like people could support you financially through your crowdfunding, and then your students were part of it. Like, they knew that you were going to a training, and it was exciting for them, I think, to think, okay, Maxine's going to go and she's going to bring this stuff back, but she's also already sharing stuff with us now.
Yeah, it was really exciting to be in that. I'm so grateful I took the leap and did it, even though it was scary. And with the crowdfunding platform, I don't know if they're all like this. I'm sure they are, but Indiegogo has an option where you create everything as a draft first, and then you publish it. So everything was a draft for about 3.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I would almost every day, my finger would hover over the enter button to press, like, okay, publish, but I couldn't do it day after day. Like, I was just too frightened. And then finally I did it, and my mom was my first supporter, which is so sweet. And and then after that, things started coming in, and I guess I didn't know what to expect. Like, I think I was expecting not to get anything, which would have made me feel very comfortable in one sense. So when donations started coming in, or contributions, I would cry, get really welled up and really emotional, because on one hand, I really wasn't expecting it. I was still doubting the process and doubting myself, even though part of me was jumping into it, like, full on. It was a very funny, conflicted time with my insecurities and the parts of myself that were raring just to, like, be courageous and to jump out of my shell and all of that. I was really stuck between two worlds. And then during that process, what started happening is people were giving me checks in cash instead, because they didn't want the platform to take a cut at all. So online, I raised about $1,500 or $1,700. I'm looking at it now, but I can't quite get it up. But in total, with the cash and check donations that I received over that time as well, it was $1,950 that I raised on Indiegogo. But then with cash and check, altogether, it was about $5,500 was my goal. And I was like, I'm still totally blown away that I was able to do that, and that people, not that I was able to do it, that people saw the worth. And folks who I haven't talked to in years, or I don't see for a really long time, were wiring me like $5. And $5 means a lot when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign. It can really add up. And I was just blown away the whole time.
That's amazing. You had set an amount, like a goal amount, and reached it. Did you have a plan in case you didn't reach that amount?
No, and I think the no plan for reaching the goal was actually, in a way, a very sneaky secret plan. I think it helped me reach my goal in a funny way. That, I had this goal in mind, and it wasn't that I was like, okay, this is the goal I'm going to get to no matter what, and I'm going to strive for it. But at the same time, it wasn't like, this is the goal, but I don't really care if I don't go. Like, I knew I was going to go. That's the thing. I knew it was going to happen. And if I didn't meet my goal, I was just going to have to figure it out because I was already partway into the correspondence, distance learning, and I already put out all these newsletters and Facebook posts. I was like telling people about it, and so it was very clear like I couldn't not go. So there was really no other option but to meet the goal in some way or another. I just wasn't quite sure how it was going to happen, and I was nervous a little throughout the process. But that nervousness was really taken over by excitement dramatically. Like it was in the background. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was there any point where you thought, oh my gosh, this is the most challenging point? What would that look like? Was it the pressing publish?
It gets really personal. I think the most difficult point was when I got to the place where I actually realized I had raised enough money that I could make it a go. And then I had to deal with the very practical realities of, okay, so this is a go, and Shannon is very sweet and supportive, and Catherine, who owns Jones Studio where I manage now, very sweet and supportive. My boyfriend, very sweet and supportive. I didn't quite come to terms with the fact that I was going to be leaving, though, for like 2 months. Yeah, I think it was pretty near to 2 months by the end of it all, because the month-long immersion, and then I spent some time in Australia visiting a cousin as well, while I was really close there, and all the travel back and forth. By the end, it was close to 2 months that I was taking off work. So it was more the practical elements that really became quite challenging to face. Of, okay, so I'm going to be missing work, first of all, but also putting an enormous workload on you at the time. And then I did feel certainly very selfish for going for that reason, and then also for leaving my partner for that long, because it was the middle of winter, and a lot of people in this area struggle with winter. And I was just stars in my eyes, so excited to go that I was like, oh yeah, like other people will miss me, and my grandparents will miss me. You know, I spend a lot of time with them. So it was a lot of that kind of guilt coming from, oh, this is really selfish, that became very challenging. Yeah.
It's like the receiving end of it. Oh, I appreciate that you shared that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the whole crowdfunding thing. It was the once you hit it and then to allow yourself, because it was receiving on a huge scale, like receiving support. Just so you know, like I didn't feel like you were running off and shirking your responsibilities at all. So that was entirely you. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So then, there were so many challenges throughout that provided for a lot of great lessons to dissect once I actually got to the immersion with my teachers and the other women in the group. I was one of the only ones who did crowdfunding that year and who did it so successfully. I thought, well, if this is what I'm supposed to do, I guess I just have to go for it. Yeah, it was quite amazing that it was all able to come together, but it was certainly very difficult. Yeah.
And just talking about it now and thinking about it, I'm just reminded of how difficult it was and still is, still reflecting on it and getting over the idea of, okay, I asked people for money, I did this thing, you know, I went to a tropical, beautiful place full of flowers. As teachers know, when you enroll in any kind of intensive or teaching retreat or program, that there's a lot of beauty that comes from being surrounded by a particular community of teachers, but that it's also very hard work. I don't think I've ever been to a training that I don't have to come up with against some inner gunk for sure. So there's a lot of hard work. And the correspondence learning was a lot of hard work too. There's a lot of contemplation, a lot of reflection on myself as a person and as a teacher, and then the intensive in person as well was really quite intensive. It was a leadership training, so there's a lot of things that the facilitators did that pushed me out of my comfort zone and really initiated growth within me. But to do that, and to do that on a fast scale, condensed within a month, one does come up against a lot. So I knew, you know, it wasn't going to be a piece of cake. Like, I knew it was going to be hard work. When I was there, it wasn't just going to be a tropical land of flowers. On one hand, it was, certainly. But on the other hand, there was a lot of stuff to work through and to claim responsibility over, too. Like the feelings of selfishness or shame or guilt of receiving, all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you invested this time. I definitely saw a difference. Did you hear some students reacting as well when you got back and you took a 500-hour intensive there? So when you got back, what were some of the things people were saying to you?
Aside from the really positive feedback of, oh, you're glowing from eating really great food and practicing regularly. I did have some feedback that my confidence grew, that I did shed some unnecessary languaging that I had been using as a crutch for insecurity reasons. And then overall, I do think that my confidence and my clarity developed over that time, not just from the month, though. It's something I'm still processing. I'm still going through the lessons and the experiences we did and integrating those more and more in workshops that I do, in my teaching as well. I think the biggest thing really was that the confidence was a lot more clear.
Yeah.
My voice became a lot more clear. Yeah, which, I mean, as anyone who has experienced anxiety or just chronic shyness, that's a really big deal. And I have to remind myself of just the worth in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's huge. I mean, I noticed it right away. I also really appreciated seeing this community that you built, or more so that students could be involved in your life in a different way other than just seeing you in class. And I love that you also made them dinner. It's not like everyone would do that with a crowdfunding. That's one of your passions, is local food. But how did that feel to then take it out of the yoga class context?
I got to know people on a much more personal level as well. I got to step away from being at the front of the room and to join people all together in this collective initiative to get me to this training. Like I was not the person necessarily they were lifting up. I was helping to lift myself too along with them by stepping away from the front of the room and sitting down at the dinner table and going out for coffee and being asked questions like, why should I invest money into this? Like that was one of the questions that came up a few times of what will I benefit out of this if I contribute to the crowd fund? Like what am I going to get from you? I forgot to mention, that's another thing that was really hard to be like, what are you going to get from me? What do I hope to do with this? It really defined my commitment to staying in this area for a while and defined my commitment to staying a teacher. It became really clear after that point, it's not something that I was going to be doing temporarily. I needed to do it for a while, and that these relationships with students need to be fostered and tended to more than just on a weekly basis at the front of the room. If we're going to maintain a long-term relationship and really learn and grow with each other, I think asking for support is a really amazing way to develop a relationship between a teacher and a student, and for it to grow into a whole new dimension so the teachings can really come alive instead of just in a 75-minute space,
right,
but over a period of time, through an entire time knowing a person or a group of people.
Would you say then it's like what I'm kind of hearing, and correct me on this if it isn't what it feels like, but it's sort of a responsibility to your community?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very clear and simple way of putting it.
So,
yeah, 100%.
With that, that's really interesting because that's exactly what I see you fostering. So tell us a bit about the work that you do, 2 hats that I see you wearing at Tone Studio, but then your other work that you're just diving into now.
So at Tone Studio, when I was in Bali, I had gotten a message from you and Catherine suggesting what would it be like if when you came back you were the manager of the studio. And I thought, at the time, I was like, okay, all right, leadership training, developing relationships, making a commitment to the community, having the responsibility of being a teacher, owning it and calling myself that, yeah, okay, I'll be the manager of the studio. And so that I started wearing that hat kind of around that time, and it developed more and more fully into that role as time went on. So at Tone Studio, I do teach regular classes. I don't teach as much right now as maybe I would like, as I am balancing management. And as we've heard talked about before on the podcast shows, taking the time to do self-administration is really important. And then so doing administration on behalf of teachers and a whole studio does take a lot of time and a lot of digital energy too. It's a lot of time behind a screen. Mm-hmm. As you definitely know. Yeah, as you know as well. And so I teach there, and I love I love to teach, and I love the practice as well. I just love co-creating with someone a space where they can encounter their breath and learn from the stories the breath is telling the body, and to learn from kind of what's underneath the layers. So more and more I've approached a style of teaching where less and less I'm really telling people exactly how to enter or exit a posture. So I'm still kind of developing my own flavor for things, but I think my style of teaching, it is quite particular to me, and so I've started adopting this name, Inner Wilderness Yoga, which my website is www.innerwildernessyoga.com. And I'm just curious to explore more how I can weave themes and natural elements, stories, and life experience into teaching, to take things more so off the mat. And that's where my work with Sarana Institute comes in. They're based out of Toronto right now, but there is a piece of property up here in Chatsworth, Ontario, where this year we're running a 5-day-long young adult program. It's for ages 18 to 30 years old, and it's all based on the pillars of mindfulness practice, nature awareness, food sovereignty, and studying clean food systems, and relationship building to self and others to facilitate an experience of leadership, and to dive into how one can be a leader within their own life. So I'm kind of, through the training that I took, which, by the way, it was called Shakti Initiation, All Women's Leadership Training.
Okay, I'll put a link to that in our show notes.
I'll provide you a bunch of links that you can add in. Yeah, so through Shakti Initiation, I realized that I have such a big passion for being outside, and how can I bring that together? And I also have a really big passion for what can arise when a person inches themselves more and more towards a challenging edge to create a space for courage and confidence and leadership, inner leadership to develop through things like individual yoga practice, but also more so in regards to community, to sitting in council or in circle, to reflecting off one another with conscious communication, is those forms of contemplations and exercises that I would love to move more towards offering through workshops. Right. I still really intend to teach regular classes because I love doing that, and it's really important for me to have regular classes to maintain relationships, especially with those who are busy and they can just pop in every once in a while. But it really is, it's a passion of mine to continue learning from my own story and my own struggles, and just being in relationships with people. I think a studio is a great place to do that, and I also think another great place to do that is outside when you're camping or when you're sitting around a fire or when you're walking the trail. So how I can weave all of that together is kind of what my inquiry with Inner Wilderness Yoga is all about.
That's pretty amazing, Max. And it's also amazing how that training is still trickling into everything you do, like this responsibility to community, that feeling, and then just the leadership training and how it's still informing a lot. Like, I see it. It might be easier even for people from the outside to see it, but I mean, your personality along with that training and your experience has made a pretty powerful impact. And I mean an impact on you, but also on our community and our studio. And I'm a big fan of Maxine.
Oh, that's really sweet, Shannon. Thank you. I'm a really big fan of you, too.
I would like to ask if there's anything, so say someone decided to do crowdfunding for yoga teacher training, what would you tell them, like, make sure you do this or make sure you don't do this? What have you learned and what would you pass on to someone else?
I would say, well, the first thing I would say, if you're considering crowdfunding to go to a training, which, by the way, I mean, like, yoga teaching is a fairly new profession in the developed world, and we don't have the structures in place to offer us financial support when pursuing training. As most listeners know, trainings can cost a lot of money, and you have to take a lot of time off work and time to integrate as well. I think is really important, taking time to integrate after trainings too. And so asking for support from time to time, I would say, like, please don't rule it out as an option. Like, if there's something you really want to bring to your community or you think would really strengthen your teaching and kind of polish off the edges or really allow yourself to shine by immersing yourself with a teacher you highly respect, I'd say really please don't count out the idea of crowdfunding. It can truly be an amazing experience. And that if you encounter fear along the process, I'd really encourage you to follow the roots of where that fear is stemming from. As I talked about, it can go through many, many layers, and you can go back to some really early patterns that a person has developed. So the whole experience would really lend to growth as a person. One thing that I definitely would do different is I'd spend some more time researching different crowdfunding platforms. As I said, there's some that don't take as much of a cut. I'll provide a link as well. There's a good blog that compares a whole bunch of different ones with their rates and what the pros and cons are. And I found that after I had launched into doing this, but I would say maybe spend a little bit more time researching, just so that those who are using their hard-earned money to donate towards you, you're using a platform that takes the least amount as possible. I mean, some of the crowdfunding platforms are really used for big crowdfunding initiatives or in hopes to reach a lot of people. And Indiegogo, I think, is one of those things. Like, I could have gone for just more of a no-frills kind of approach with a crowdfunding site. I just didn't know really at the time. And because you just need a place where your community can find you online and donate.
Right.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be like the biggest name because they usually take the most money. What I would also say is, and I struggled with this too because life can be full, life can be busy, but as much as you possibly can, like definitely stick to, if you're going to offer them something in exchange for what they're donating in different degrees of contribution, like $100, $5, $50. If you're going to offer them something, stick to that because it will make you feel good, but it'll make them feel really good too. Even if you keep in touch and the dinner comes a year and a half later or 2 years later than you maybe initially intended, but keep in touch with those people. It really is a big responsibility, but as a teacher, and if this is something you're wanting to do, I wholeheartedly believe you can do it. And I would suggest definitely offering them something in return for their contributions. I think that's pretty important to do. If you're in a fairly intimate community, like I am here in Owen Sound, it's a smaller community, so yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. Mm-hmm.
That's nice. That's sweet. Well, thank you so much, Maxine, for all of this. What a great deal of information. And if people want to reach out to you and if they have questions for you or they want to check out your website and kind of what you're doing, where can they find you?
Okay, so you can find me at Inner Wilderness Yoga, all one word, innerwildernessyoga.com. You could also reach out to Tone Studio as I'm on the receiving end of the emails. Yeah, so I hope this podcast has been able to maybe inspire somebody to consider crowdfunding because I got so much out of it, and it's just amazing what it can do just to really strengthen the bond between a teacher and their community.
Thank you, Maxine. Thanks for that. Wow, so much information. Thank you for that, Maxine. Thank you for your time for this podcast, but also the time that you've given to our local community in Owen Sound, Ontario. So just a little wrap up some of my key takeaways from this interview with Maxine. She talked about the time off work, the fee of training, the flights, and the travel, and how that can all really add up. And that she started to see this shift where this was an investment and her students were going to benefit, allowed the community to invest in her. And seeing this was a beautiful thing. Seeing how her students were connecting more with her, they were connecting outside of class, and it really was something to witness and watch. Also, another key takeaway is that yoga is a valid profession. Maxine said, "There's a great worth in what a yoga teacher can do." So hold on to this, connected yoga teachers, especially hold on to this when you feel a little bogged down. Maybe you feel bogged down by your schedule, or if you're like me this week, I was feeling a little bogged down by some negativity just on social media. There's a great thing to questioning and really digging in and looking at the whys and just embracing various opinions. Let me put it that way. There's also a point I find for myself that this can start to bog me down. I can start to look at, okay, how do I do this certain pose and what muscles are used? And I'm reading this opinion and it says this, and then I'm reading an opinion and it says something very different. And it's time for me, myself as a yoga teacher, to take a deep breath and to really remember that there's a huge worth and a huge value in what I can offer yoga students when I'm meeting them and we're finding breath, movement, and the deep roots of yoga philosophy. So keep remembering that. I'll say it again. Maxine, thank you for this quote. There's a great worth in what a yoga teacher can do. Also, a key takeaway for this for me, and I'm still in this process, so I'm sharing, but I'm still processing this, that Maxine really brings to light here is that there is a great deal of screen time when you are an entrepreneur. We are on our computers, we're writing emails, we're on social media, and there's a balance. And I'm not sure that I have that balance yet. So having a podcast, being a consultant for yoga teachers, being a yoga teacher, I'm always looking for that balance of where can I go for a walk outside and then come back to my desk, to my screen. So Maxine brings up a great, valid point here, and she has found a way to step back a little bit, ask other yoga teachers to take on some of that admin role. And so just in our connected yoga teacher group, I'd love to see a little bit of discussion in there. Maybe share what helps you to step back from the entrepreneur side, the business side of things, and get on your mat a little bit more, or step away and find movement and breath. Before I sign off today, I want to say a huge thank you to those of you who have left a review in iTunes or on the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook page. This means the world to me. And I had sent out a little request for my birthday month, which is October. And a lot of you either shared the podcast with a yoga teacher friend or left a review. There's still time to do that. Thank you. It's an amazing gift. It's really the best gift when you're a podcaster to get a review. I also want to give a little shout out to our Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. And if you're a yoga teacher or if you are in a yoga teacher training, you can join that group. Go to our Connected Yoga Teacher homepage, theconnectedyogateacher.com, and you'll see the Join the Community button there. We have yoga teachers from the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, India, Mexico, France, New Zealand, Germany, the Netherlands, and a few other countries. So it's amazing to see so many yoga teachers from around the globe. Our top cities, I just want to tell you the top cities. London, England, we have the most yoga teachers from London, England. Then Toronto, Ontario, London, Ontario, San Diego, California, Hamilton, Ontario, Owen Sound, Ontario, Los Angeles, California, New York, Brisbane, Australia, and Port Elgin, Ontario. So I think it's really fun to see a lot of cities coming together and a lot of yoga teachers making connections in there. I want to read a few of the reviews that were left this week. PJMA Bob from the United States says, Shannon has some amazing advice for yoga teachers to grow their business. She provides the tools needed to succeed while maintaining a life balance. Yoga teachers give a lot. Shannon beautifully presents ways to fill up your own gas tank so that you can give back while on the mat. Thank you for that, PJMA Bob. Very fun. That's really my intention, is to help you to fill up your fuel tank. Also, Yoga Journey from Canada says Shannon has done a great job building a virtual community for yoga teachers of all lineages to connect and share in a safe and supportive space. Thank you, Yoga Journey. Diane says, Shannon is amazing at what she does. She has a keen ability to actively listen to my intention, underlying what I'm trying to communicate when I struggle to find the exact words. Her questions are thoughtful and poignant. They provide space to allow me to reflect and ensure I am integrating my own values and goals. She is a great balance between providing emphatic support and giving me the push I need to propel my business forward. Her conversational style is easy, genuine, and focused. I would highly recommend connecting with Shannon as a consultant for your business. Thank you so much for that, Diane. It's amazing to see what you are offering to the world. I'm so excited about your unique yoga offerings. So there you go. Another reason to leave a review, either in iTunes or on our Facebook page, because I will try to read them all out at the end of our show. Okay, take care, connected yoga teachers. Stay connected to self, stay connected to your practice, and stay connected to your community. Namaste.